Hello everybody, James here, story time with Dutch Mantell, episode 74. There is the man with the moustache that we all know and love, Dutch Mantell. And before we get to the chit chat, to be honest, we've been there for, I'm just looking at the time, we've been looking 40 minutes just chatting about everything else other than wrestling, but this podcast is about wrestling, so we'll be doing that.
But we got to admit we've saved the world.
Oh yeah, we put the world
in
to
rights. In that 40-minute little chat that we had, we have saved everybody, bar none. So
yeah, we saved the world, politics, and everything else for off air because people and the camera is moving already.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it is most people's favorite. Hang on, my camera's gone. How weird. My camera's going crazy as well. Anyway, let's do the intro. Let's do the plugs and stuff like that. Dutch Mantell over his shoulder, and in my hand right now, he has two books, yes. Tales from a Dirt Road and The World According to Dutch. If you want them unsigned, you may go to Amazon. If you want them signed, you can go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com and make your request.
That's right.
There. He also has diplomas where he will sign it twice. You have your name on it, and there is a price on that as well, where you can get it shipped to you in time for Christmas as well, absolutely. And you go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com.
And they're great gifts. Great, you know, a wrestling fan, you want to surprise them, get them the books, get them a diploma from the University of Dutch. I sign it, and it really, really looks good on the wall. It really does.
And I have 2 books as well. I usually skip through my stuff, but since it's Christmas, I'm going to do a bit more of a... it's not Christmas, but it's on the run up to Christmas now. We're in November. Owen Hart, King of Pranks, what I wrote. The finest biography of Owen Hart you will ever find. And, of course, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, the People's Champion. Both available on Amazon. Links in the description of this video, and every podcast description as well. I also have another podcast weekly with Shane Douglas on Franchise University with Shane Douglas.
I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to have to listen to it.
Yeah, you. I think you'd like it. You like Shane, don't you?
Oh yeah, good guy.
Well, yeah, I've done many shows with him now. I think we're on episode 10 or 11 as we record this. Anyway, the new episodes are out every single Tuesday. New clips are out as well every single day on Shane Douglas Official, but on all podcast platforms and stuff. Just search Franchise University with Shane Douglas or click the links in this description. And of course, we do this show every Tuesday and every Friday. Every Tuesday is the fan question episode. If you want your question read out to the Dirty Dutchman, the crafty veteran himself, email questionsfordutch@gmail.com. Now, Dutch, normally I'd throw to you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have to do a quick right reply. So, last week, we were talking about Dominic Mysterio and the reaction he was getting from the crowd and whether it was 100% genuine or not. Now, we posted the video. We had a lot of people for and against. As some people said, no, it's all genuine boos. Other people have said, I don't know. I think something's piped in. I got, also when I said it, I said Fightful journalist Sean Ross Sapp had... I don't know if he initially brought that accusation, but I said he was the only person claiming it that I could find. Apparently not. He is not the only person claiming it, but Sean got in touch with me, and basically this is a right of reply for Sean, because he said, basically just wanted to clarify his position, that he said several people in the company have claimed that WWE are indeed either piping in boos, or at the very least, they're enhancing the audio. So that is Sean.
Wait a second. Position. So he was answering you because we said that it seems like, or did we say they were piping it in?
No,
did
we said we said we thought it was organic. We both listened and we thought, sounds right.
I did. I thought it was organic. So he was answering you to saying that several people in the company have told him that it was piped in.
Yes. Right. Or partially, at least.
And that's what we said. We don't really know, but it looks as though it is organic, like you said, and they're not piping it in. They do a great job with that. But let me ask you this. What about the live events when the people get loud?
I think it would only be a TV thing.
Okay, that's good. But it's happening in house shows too, the live shows too. So is the audio operator or engineer? Is he turning the noise up a little bit when he gets in the ring?
Okay, well, there's three theories.
And who told him here in the WWE?
I don't think he would reveal his sources on that, lest they cost them their job there. But there are three theories. One, that they are adding booze. Two, that they are raising the volume of the audience. The third one is that they are lowering Dominic's microphone when he's trying to speak.
Okay, I got it. But I would rather think that he has so much heat with them that they would actually go out of their way to make more noise in their seats than he could manufacture on the microphone.
You've already told me that you didn't watch the Vladamir documentary.
No, but I knew about this guy years ago. I'd read about him. I've seen different clips on him, but I thought he was Russian, and you told me he was
Haitian.
And I went, wait a minute. Well, to me, he looks like Dave Meltzer with glasses. That's what he looks like. If you take a picture of him, take a picture of Dave and put some glasses on him, they look like not brothers, but cousins. They look like they're related in some way. Now, you looked at it, you said, I don't see it. I do. I saw it years ago. I said, is that Dave Meltzer in Madison Square Garden? But he has a, let's say this, he has a unique look to him. Yes or no?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You can spot him in the front row a mile off.
So he came from Haiti as a child to New York City, I'm assuming, or that area, and he grew up on pro wrestling. Yes or no?
Yes.
And he's a huge fan and never missed the Madison Square Garden show when it ran. Or he may have missed a few, but is that his claim to fame?
Yeah, basically, he is basically a super fan, always spotted in the front row. The one thing that the documentary doesn't address or doesn't really hint at is how he always got front row tickets. But if you listen carefully, him and his little friend was, he was paying a lot of money as well, but is also in the documentary talking
his little friend, his name is Vladamir?
No, he is the super fan, but I think he's got a little friend called Charlie? Maybe? I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, they said that they were queuing up when you still had to queue up.
He may have had a Russian little friend, Petrov, that helped him get tickets.
Maybe he had about six
they
friends
could be some
that all were inside each other.
Yeah,
like
could have had that. So, okay, he had a little friend that got him front row tickets.
No, not even that. They both queued up at like 6 a.m. to get tickets when you had to queue up. So I think they were just dedicated enough that they were always at the front of the line, like 3 hours before the box office opened.
I had a friend who was a ticket scalper for years and years and years at Madison Square Garden. His name is Kerry. And Kerry owned Ring of Honor at one time.
Oh, yeah.
What was his last name?
Silkin.
Kerry, forgive me. I can't remember names anyway. But he told me that they would get those tickets and they would know who to hold them for. And maybe he got his tickets through a scalper. You know, say a ticket for years ago, say a ringside ticket would be, let's just mark it off, $50. Well, they would save it for this guy, no matter, because they liked him. They would give it to him for $75. They wouldn't lose any money on it, where they could have got $150. But he said, we only do one or two like that. But he said that's how he made his living for years, is scalping kick, not only to wrestling, but to every event they had at Madison Square Garden. They'd scalp the tickets. And I was reading the other day about the Taylor Swift concert. Some of those tickets you get for like $300, $400. They were going on the scalpers market for $25,000 to $3,000.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what the hell?
Do you know,
I'm in the wrong business.
Do you know who is really like outwardly against him, has been trying to do like ID with the tickets, was Ed Sheeran. He's someone who's like really trying to be out on the front here to try and stop the scalping market by basically whoever buys the ticket has to present ID when they buy it, and then present ID when they go through the door. And I think that'd be one way of doing it.
Well, it is, but also that's a violation of, I guess, the Constitution, to tell you the truth. If you buy it on the open market. And is the guys, okay, this is what if I'm a lawyer, I'd say the person who buys the ticket, they don't take their names. So how they have to change the whole system. You know, when you read about a concert coming in and it's sold out in 30 minutes, well, it's sold out because of the internet. That's why it's sold out. They're all gone. Used to be it didn't sell out like that. It was like individual efforts and individual phone calls. And I don't know, but I don't think Ed Sheeran, I appreciate his concern. And the scalpers are making a killing for actually hoarding tickets and selling them at a high price. It goes to the top bidder. I don't know if that's illegal or not, but I don't think that's
free enterprise.
I don't like it. Let me say this. I don't like it. So if I don't like it, damn it, change it.
Should it be illegal? Free enterprise?
No, it should not be illegal. But they might need to, like Ed Sheeran says, they may need to revisit and restructure the system to cut down on that. But these people, these scalpers, when they make the profit, they just keep it moving. I mean, money's sitting there. You're looking at it. It's not making you any money. So they're just buying more tickets and more tickets and more tickets. So it's like capitalism. If you see a need, fill it. They saw a need. They got in there, and they get a lot of heat, but they don't give a crap.
There isn't a need. There isn't a need. That's the thing for that.
Well, the need is people wanting the tickets. That's the need.
But the tickets would be there if all the scalpers hadn't bought them.
Well, the need, okay, I'm going to say I concur with that, my colleague. But the need is there if the scalpers hadn't bought them. But don't they have a limit on how many tickets can be bought at one time?
Generally, it's 6 in my experience. Sometimes it can be 4. Sometimes it can be 10. It depends on the event, but 6 is a generalization. I think that's fair. Okay,
put yourself in the boots of a scalper. I can only buy 6 tickets personally, but guess what? I got like 10 friends, and I pay them so much to buy these tickets, and I'm still making a profit. They can buy 6. The next guy can buy 6. The next guy can buy 6. That's 60 tickets. What if I had 20? That's 120. And multiply that from the markup that I'm going to get on each ticket. I'm still making money. So I don't know how they're going to get by that. I would make it each person could only buy half a ticket.
What, and share a seat?
You know, if you'd be serious long enough, we could get something done. But
have you seen how small those seats are? I can barely fit in them.
In Madison Square Garden?
Well, just anywhere. They're like, what, 18 inches? The old saying.
Oh yeah, they're too much. See, Madison Square Garden, I've been in there several times, and I'll send you a picture of me standing in there. But it's not as big as you would think it'd just be a massive building. It is big, but it's not as big as some buildings I've been in. I guess the seats are bigger, but in Madison Square Garden, they're smaller. But the sound in there is tremendous because it's a lot of sound in a small space.
Manchester Arena, which you'll have been to.
Yeah,
it's
I've
very,
been
very
there.
steep. But I hadn't realised this. They're building near Manchester City's ground at the Etihad Stadium. They're building a new 40,000 seats or near enough indoor arena. So I'm wondering if WWE will start running there instead. That'll be very interesting because
They will run there.
yeah, the Manchester Arena has been the incumbent for
And
decades.
and guess who else is going to run there?
Ed Sheeran.
He does very well, doesn't he?
He probably wouldn't run there. It'd probably be too small for him. Stadiums only, I suspect.
AEW will run there.
Yeah. Will they?
They will run that probably 6 months apart from Wembley.
You think?
Well, that's what I'd say.
Well, that'd be January 2025.
I mean, it don't cost me nothing to talk. I'm just throwing it out there to see if anybody will pick up on it. And if you pick up on it, good. If you don't, but that would be good. He would have then if he set a record there at 40,000 in Manchester and 80,000 or whatever he did in Wembley. Now that gives him some bragging rights, especially to the UK. But now Syracuse has a football stadium. I've never been in it. It's called something Dome or something. All the Syracuse football fans, they'll know what it's called. But I think it has something like 32,000 seats, and it's a football field, but it's an indoor arena. And that's what I like about indoor arena. The sound has nowhere to go except up and then come back down. How many does Syracuse have since you're... Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know that James is a whiz on looking up information.
No, my Google decides to crash. The JMA Wireless Dome, 35,446.
That's a lot for an indoor arena. It really is. I mean, it can't get rained out. It can't get frozen out. It can't do anything, which actually makes the football games there pretty interesting. All right, continue.
Now, you said picking up on stuff we have to issue, or more specifically, I have to issue an apology to you. Because last week... Yeah, to you. Because last week we did the best and worst promoters and bookers' sons, children kind of thing. We had 4 groups of people.
Hey, I had to issue some apologies myself.
Oh, yeah.
Because of you, but I didn't blame you, James.
There's a couple I'm ashamed to admit I forgot, but we went from all the way from great to the shits. 4 different categories that you named the shits as well, by the way. And anyway, I don't prefer to call them the shits. It's like not adequately equipped to handle it, maybe something like that. George Goulas.
But yeah, he is the shits.
Yeah, there you go.
He is the definition of the shits. If you look his name up in dictionary, it has the shits. That's it.
With the big book of non-famous people.
With a Z. With a Z.
Now, some people were suggesting certain people, and I'm going to explain why they don't qualify. So, a fair few people mentioned Barry Windham, son of Blackjack Mulligan. Now, Blackjack Mulligan did own a territory for a brief time with Dick Murdoch, but in my mind, when you think of Blackjack, you don't think of long-time promoter. You just think wrestler, essentially. So we sort of just left him out of that one. The Anoa'i family, I mean, there's dozens of them. We could be here all day, but none of them really promoters apart from Afra and Seeker, and that's always been very low-level Indian training kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's someone else who's a promoter. I don't know. But we're leaving them all off. A couple of people said The Rock. Now, The Rock is not a son of a promoter. The Rock is the adoptive grandson of a promoter, Peter Maivia, and we also disqualified him because Peter Maivia died over a decade before The Rock got into the business, so it's hardly Peter's, I suppose with WWF and Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson and everyone who had an affinity with the Maivia and Rocky Johnson family, but we're leaving The Rock off the list. Also, Kurt Hennig was mentioned a lot, and he's not a promoter's son. Now, here are the qualifying names that I forgot.
Pay attention, folks.
You especially, Dutch. Now, we've talked about these 2 people a lot on the show, so we won't dwell on them too much. But from great, very good, okay, the shits, Terry Funk and Dory Funk. How could we have forgotten them?
Well, I didn't come up with a list.
Okay, how could I have forgotten them? Where do they?
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, Dory and Terry Funk, they're at the very top. They're very, very good. Great to work with. Terry especially. Because Terry, when you got in the ring with Terry, the fans didn't know what to expect out of him, nor did his opponent. I've gotten in a ring with Terry before, and I mean, we wouldn't talk the match over or nothing. We just go to the ring. And I said, "You want to do anything out there, Terry?" He would just say, "We'll just call it out there." And that's what you don't hear today with WWE guys or AEW guys. We'll call it out there. And I can see why WWE, because they want to know, it's a TV show. They want to know exactly what you're going to do, when, because they got to go to commercial. And AEW to some extent too, the same thing applies there. But even if you're on TV or not with Terry, you know, they have a thing called editing. So, and that was left up to the editor. But we just go to the ring and, you know, he'd say, "Dutch, we'll call it out there," and get in the ring. And sometimes he'd be walking amongst the fans and drinking out of their cups and then come back to the ring doing that crazy walk and beat the crap out of me and I'd beat the crap out of him. And, you know, he's more prevalent in the matches with like Mick Foley, some crazy stuff. But even watching his old stuff, it's the same thing. I love to watch a match with Funk and Dick Murdoch together. Oh, they're just... Dick Murdoch was a classic throwback. He didn't give a crap and was a tough son of a gun. I was in West Palm. I had just gone to Florida. I'm going to tell us, here's one of my stories. I went to West Palm Beach in Florida. It was every Monday night, you know, booking. West Palm Beach. So they had just brought Murdoch in. And Murdoch was going to do a run-in. And the people saw him coming, of course. And I saw two guys get up like to stop him. He had a punch, like I call a 6-inch punch. Who else had this too was Killer Carl Cox. He had a punch. And he hit one, and the other one tried to get in his way. He hit the other one. Both of them went down, and then he came back out. He did his damage. Now the people were mad. Now on his way back, two other guys stood up, and he hit both of them, boom, boom. And when I looked back, the cops were standing around him, and three of them were still down. One of them was up like this. And I said, "What happened out there, Dickie?" He said, "Yeah, it got in the way. So, but he was a tough guy. I mean, he was probably going, I don't know how he would be overall, but just to the regular guy on the street, he was a tough guy. And he looked crazy too. When you looked at him, he had that short blonde hair and those eyes going crazy. But great guy. That is, great guy if he liked you. If he didn't like you, it was not so good. I went to Puerto Rico, and Dickie was the booker and just made some shots down there. And he told this one guy, he was about a 6'9", I mean, a big guy. And he told him to do something. And I was a babyface then. And the 6'9" guy was a babyface. He told him to do something and he didn't want to do it. And he said, "I don't think I'm going to do that out there." I said, "Well, I don't have nothing to do with it." He went out there. He didn't do it. And then out of the clear blue, here comes Dickie. He was watching it from the dressing room. And Dickie had nothing to do with this match. He went in the ring and just beat the guy up. And he said, "You piece of shit. and he cussed him out in the ring in English, so some people understood it. And everybody in the dressing room knew what it was about. Hey, when I tell you to do something, do it. Don't go in there and go in business for yourself because you didn't want to do it. And shortly thereafter, I think the big guy parted ways with Puerto Rico and left because Dickie didn't give a crap. But he was a good guy. But okay, Dick Murdoch don't have nothing to do with the Sons or promoters. Like you said.
Just before we get off Dick, if I can coin a phrase, he is actually second generation Dick Murdoch.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask if you ever met his father. I believe it's his stepfather, Frankie Hill Murdoch, who was also a wrestler.
I've heard of Frankie Murdoch. Is that him? His father?
Yep. Stepfather, apparently.
Well, hell, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just knew, but I never met him. So that's probably the reason I didn't know about it. And Dickie never brought that up. He never brought up like, hey, my father's a... He never brought that up. And Dickie was a much bigger star than he was.
Yeah.
Frankie Murdoch was probably a big star out around Lubbock, El Paso. Where was the office that the Funks ran? Where was that?
Amarillo, wasn't it?
Amarillo, Texas, right. So here's another story out of Amarillo.
Mm-hmm.
This kid came in. And I guess Terry liked him or Dory liked him, and the old man, Dory Funk Sr. And he was like a little short, stocky guy and had short hair. And they said, hey, kid, we're going to give you a German gimmick. Oh, okay. Because it used to be like if Germans came out of the dressing room area because we'd been in a war with them, they were automatically heels, automatically. It's like the Japanese come out, they're automatically heels. So I forgot the name they gave him. It was like Hans von Schitz.
That's yeah.
Have you heard the story?
Gee, I didn't know it until you just said that then. Yeah, I think we've told it not too long ago, yeah.
Yeah, Hans von Schitz. And he got in the ring. He couldn't get any heat because of the last name. People kept laughing about the name Von Schitz. So he complained. He went through it was his first week there. So, and he went through the whole week, same thing. When they announced his name, people start laughing. And he said, I just can't get any heat. I can't overcome the laughter. So he finally said something to somebody on a Monday afternoon. I think they ran Amarillo on a Monday, I think. And they said, okay, it was just a rib, kid, just to see how you'd take it. So we're going to change your name tonight. He said, what are you going to change it to? He said, well, we'll tell you tonight. So, and this is straight from Terry Funk's mouth in a car trip in San Juan. We're making some trip. And he got in the ring, and they did change his name from Hans von Schitz. They changed it to Helmut von Schitz. Oh, and Terry told that story, and he started laughing, and I started laughing. It may have been the time of day or we were tired or whatever, but we laughed for 5 minutes about that. But that's Terry's story. So, and I heard a lot of stories from Terry. I wish I could remember all of them now. But, yeah, the Funks, going back to what we were talking about, before we got off centered here, thanks to you, James.
Sorry.
Terry and Dory were tremendous. Dory, on the other hand, he was very serious. And I went through a series of matches with him in Florida. I had about a 2-week run with him. And he does what he calls, they do this in the UK a lot, the lifters,
mm-hmm.
the uppercut. And Dory's a big guy. Dory's when you see Dory, his size is, you don't realize he's really as big as he is. He's about 240, maybe more, but he would hit you with those lifters, buddy. It would wake you up. I mean, it wasn't in the head. It was just right in here. And he would lift you off the ground because he would put some power behind those shots, and you could hear it at ringside. It would, and I was saying, I was looking at the calendar. I was like this. I was like saying, God, how many more days I got with Dory? And I was getting ready to leave anyway, because Dory had been the booker and I was coming in as the booker. So Dory was doing the honors for me, but great matches with him, solid matches. And the people actually, when you have a match with Dory and you win, people believed that back in those days, because you know why they believed it? I believed it. I believe he beat the crap out of me. But Dory and Terry, where we would list them on that list, I would say the very, very top, most accomplished and the best.
We will have to. I'm going to read all the names. We're going to have to maybe skip ahead, not give stories on some of them. Jacques Rougeau and Ray Rougeau.
They're good. Not tip top, I'd say, but what was our next to the top?
Very good.
Very good. Very good.
Now, actually, I wouldn't mind asking a bit more of an opinion on this one, but we put David Flair in, and then we didn't ask about Charlotte Flair.
Mm-hmm.
Where would she fall in?
Well, I think she's very, very good. And I don't want to criticize her, but I think she relies too much on the Flair history, especially in the entrance and everything that Rick did. It looks like a female doing Ric Flair. But she's very, very good. So I would put her as a woman. I guess I would put her in the top tier. Mm-hmm. She's that good.
Now, we're not going to include Reed Flair because, he passed away very young. I don't think either of us have ever actually seen a match with him in. Now, the next one is interesting. I'm not sure you've ever seen him wrestle. Garrett Bischoff.
No, never saw him wrestle.
We will skip Garrett then. Now, this is an interesting one. The original Sheik's son, Captain Ed George.
I heard he was the living shit stew. I heard he was the northern version, or a more northern version of George Goulas.
Never saw him then.
Now, George, if you're listening to this, I'm making you famous here, buddy. So you have a title, you need to take it and run with it. And I'm sure he's hearing about this, but the Sheik's son, I never saw him in the ring. I'm glad I didn't, but I heard he was the northern version of George Goulas. That's what he was.
And the last two on this list, another one that I can't believe we missed out, Carlito and Primo Colon.
Mm-hmm. Primo is Eddie. Is that Eddie Colon?
I think so, yeah.
Good. Very good. I wouldn't put him at the top, but I put him very good.
Right, so then, I've just realised we're on page 2 of 6. So we're
speed up.
I know. Well, people told me to talk slower. You told me to talk slower. One person complained and you told me to talk slower.
Because I was having trouble understanding.
No, you weren't.
Well, I'm a liar then. You see how he calls me a liar without calling me a liar? Okay, go ahead.
Next
Continue.
one. Bryian Danielson, injured yet again. So, Bryian Danielson wrestled on AEW Dynamite last week after sustaining a broken orbital bone 4 nights earlier on AEW Collision.
Now, what bone is broken? You have to demonstrate to me.
Eye socket. Oh, hang on, my thing's going weird. Yeah.
That's the orbital bone here.
Yeah.
Over the eye or below the eye, does it matter?
It might be internal. 1 sec. I'll double check. So, just as I pause then, Dutch is making fun of me by saying internal bone. And quite rightly said, they're all internal. Well done there, Dutch. No, when I was saying internal, I meant it like didn't protrude through the skin. I was actually thinking like behind the eye, like the eye socket, back of the eye socket. Anyway, I'm looking here now. It's basically one of the ridges around the eye, I think, orbital bone. So
one of those got broken.
Yes, he's receiving surgery. Sports Illustrated reported that he was not injured on Dynamite last week, but rather he worked that match with broken orbital bone, but he didn't actually do much in it for obvious reasons. He actually broke his orbital, yes.
Have you noticed something different about me today?
No.
Are you kidding me?
No. I see. Many people are asking if you're just going to nibble it.
So listen, if there was a murder happening and you missed a big thing like this,
well, I'd go as the guy with the massive mustache. It's like, well, did he have a cigar in his mouth? It's like, no, it's the guy with the huge mustache who committed the murder of Captain Ed George, or George Goulas.
Okay, continue.
Where was I going? Anyway, he got it injured, freak injury with Andrade on Collision the week beforehand. Poor Danielson, poor Bryan. This is he had a concussion that kept him out for a bit. Then he broke his forearm in a match with Okada.
Concussions, seriously. You know how many concussions I probably had without knowing I had one?
Well,
really?
I mean, what do you define as a concussion? Because that definition changes over time.
Well, if you get knocked out, which I have numerous times, well, not that many times, but I can remember at least 3 or maybe 4. It's serious. That's a concussion.
That is not what a concussion is. I mean, it can be, but a concussion is.
Folks, you see, now, this is my definition. Wait a minute. Of a concussion. If you get knocked out, that's a concussion.
You can get knocked out without getting concussed.
I can't.
Okay.
I'm different.
The point is, they define a concussion these days as essentially almost like any rattling of the brain. You can have like micro concussions by like heading a ball, something like that. But concussions are generally sort of
Here's something you didn't know.
Go on.
Girls soccer, when they spear the ball or head the ball or whatever they do, that not only causes, it can knock them silly.
Yeah.
But it hurts the neck because the male neck is stronger and they have a lot of neck injuries. Have you ever read that?
No.
Have you ever heard that?
No.
Well, you've heard it now. So
there you go.
The next time you carry on a conversation, you could throw that in there. Whether it's true or not, it's just for conversation.
Essentially, for concussions, brain is rattling around and hitting the skull inside. So, I mean, the more severe that happens, the more severe the concussion, I imagine. Sticking with Bryian Danielson, he's already given himself a self-imposed retirement date of some point in later 2024. Now he's going to be out for 2-3 months.
Uh-huh.
It's like, is this just, I mean, it's clearly a run of bad luck, but Bryian Danielson, how can you get behind Bryian Danielson now when you know he's only got maybe 8-9 months worth of work left in him after he recovers from this?
Well, people forget that. Just start something with an opponent, tell a good story. Now the people don't want to see you go. If it's a compelling enough story, and if it is compelling enough and drawing money, Tony hopefully might extend him longer and to get the full effect of it and the full effect of his possibly profitable run. There's a lot of things that can happen in a year.
Well, I want to clarify. I don't mean the fans. I mean a booker. So if you think, well, this guy's only going to be around for 8 months now. I mean, what do you do with it?
Well, I'd do something to it. I'd do a hot angle with him right off the bat.
Yeah.
When he comes back. And then the people, again, I've been around it enough. People are going to forget that you've put a self-imposed exit from the company. They're going to forget that. And don't have your announcers. See, people are reminded about things by the announcers. well, he better, if he wins the title, he's going to retire. And, that's reminding them. And that's becoming, and here's a question you may not know. Who are the bookers in NFL football? Who really calls those angles? Who do you think?
If there was someone who match made, you're asking the wrong person to. I have no idea.
Well, it's the same as soccer, but it's the announcers. The announcers put that thought in the people's heads, and they go with it. So
you wouldn't harp on about it then? You would say, he's retiring this many months, but he's got business to do first. He wants to do this. He wants to achieve this title run, that kind of thing. You'd ignore the retirement impending.
I wouldn't ignore it totally, but you got to throw it in there because he said that. So if he wins, is he still retiring? See, a lot of things like that, but I wouldn't beat it to death. But see, there's a lot of things they can do with that. I kind of like the idea. I wish I was there to help them kind of book this, because I would just... You got to take what the audience gives you. You got to take what Bryian Danielson gives you. And then you kind of mesh and mold that idea together. Put him with a good opponent. Keep him with a good opponent. And I think you can get big time mileage out of Bryian Danielson from right now to the time he stops.
That's a good point you brought up there, is keep him with an opponent. Yeah, keep him with an opponent, because what he's doing at the moment, or was doing at the moment, Bryian Danielson's wrestling like a new person every week for the sake of, I suppose, he wants to wrestle them before he retires. But you've said, no, let's not do this retirement tour of everyone gets a go. No, you shove him in a hot angle and you keep him with one opponent. And I don't think many people would actually. This is why you're a booker.
Well, every angle has a shelf life. That's why could angles go in Florida and the Carolinas and Memphis and Texas for months and months and months?
Because they didn't give everything away on TV every week, I imagine, for starters.
Well, that's one thing, but they told the story. And your big stars, let me explain it like this. Bruno, when he got in a big angle, they brought these heels in, and this is the way Memphis ran. This is the way Florida ran. Carolina, they would have a top resident babyface. The resident babyface in Florida for years was Dusty Rhodes. He was the king. In Memphis, it was Jerry Lawler. In Texas, it was the Von Erichs. In New York, it was Bruno. And in Charlotte, it wasn't a resident babyface. It was actually a resident heel. It was Flair. But it ran much the same way. So they would just bring in these. And this was the days before cable, before you saw all these other guys. A lot of people in Memphis have told me till the Superstation came along, they didn't know there was wrestling anywhere else in the country. They didn't know they had wrestling in Texas. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know they had wrestling in New York and all these other places. But if they've never seen these people, say you were bringing, let me go back to him. If you were bringing a big heel to Memphis to challenge Lawler, well, before he finished an angle with the last big challenge, a big heel, you would start running these clips of coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. And Jimmy Hart was going to manage this guy. It was some big 6'8", 300-pound guy that was the monster. It was almost like Lawler was the dragon killer. Mm-hmm. So this was the next dragon to come in. And as soon as he finished the angle with the last heel he had, they would, within the next 2 weeks, they would shoot another one with the new guy. And then the new guy would take the title. And then Lawler would lay out for 2 weeks, a couple of weeks, wherever. or whatever, and then he would beat underneath, talent. Like he would beat Bill Dundee and he'd Steve Kern, and then he'd beat somebody else, and he'll say, "Did he beat you, Dutch?" See, I was actually so far down the list by the time he got through beating those other guys, they wasn't time to beat me. So a lot of times they didn't beat me, and you could almost on your calendar, if it was, say, he came in January, by September his run's over. Now he can stay, but he actually hurts himself on the next run around, and his big money days are gone because he's already went to Lawler and they've already blown it off. And now there's a time for another big heel to start. So you actually hurt the heel when he stays longer than he should. Bruno, on the other hand, he stayed 8 years the champion.
Mm-hmm.
But they ran such big towns. They ran like the Garden, and they ran Boston and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Baltimore and all those in Pittsburgh. They ran all those big towns, and they just run them once a month. So they would draw a huge house in all those cities. So, and you can imagine some of the paydays some of those guys got if they were paying them even halfway decent, which is another thing we have to talk about. But what was the original question?
No, sorry about Daniel Bryan. I am going to
Daniel Bryan. Okay, Daniel Bryan. I think he's a lot of life left in him, even if he gave the self-imposed exit date.
So next on the agenda is probably the most interesting thing of the week, I think. So MJF versus Kenny Omega. Now, sticking with Collision, the main event was one of the very biggest singles matches that AEW could have produced, MJF versus Kenny Omega. First off, you watched the closing portions of the match, purely about match quality and the aftermath. What did you think of it? Give us a review of the whole thing.
Great match. What I saw, a great match. If I wanted to really be picky, I could pick it apart. Of course, everybody can pick it apart. But what I admired about this match was that Kenny Omega knows timing. He knows pacing. He knows, and MJF too. I guess they had to work together as a team on this. They had a great match. I love the finish. The finish, they had a guy run down, what's his name, Callis or Don Callis. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad he didn't get involved because he didn't need to get involved. I don't even know his association with either one of them, because I really, since I stopped watching AEW, because I do a recap on Raw on Sportskeeda.
SmackDown.
I do on SmackDown.
They don't pay you enough. Raw. They don't pay you enough to sit through 3 hours.
No, they don't pay me enough. Good people. And sometimes up to a year ago, I'm sitting through SmackDown like this, like, and why the ratings didn't slip farther is because people went to sleep watching it and forgot to change the channel. Then they woke up and it's over. Oh, is it over? What happened? But now it's much more. It is much more. Much better.
Much better. Just to clarify, because you asked, Don Callis used to be the manager of Kenny Omega, and then they had to split up, so that's why Don was there.
Okay.
So
I was going to say that. I knew that. I didn't know that. Well, I did know that, but I've forgotten it. So, but anyway, he didn't get involved. But the only thing I can say about it, they were outside the ring. At one point for so long. And this is where you need rules in wrestling, because the next time, two guys outside the ring, and you might need a DQ in a match, but they've killed that rule with they didn't kill it. MJF and Omega, they were outside like 2 minutes and the referee's out there with them and not counting out anyway. That's picking it to death. But as far as the match quality, there was a lot of work that went in that. But the execution of the match was basically flawless. It was really, really good. Now, you can You can. Where's Omega from?
Canada.
Okay. But I think he spent years in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever taught him, or he could be self-taught, you can't really teach. You can, but it's hard. You just got to feel that. That's just got to be a guy playing a guitar on stage. He knows when to do certain things. And they took their time, and the people were really into that. So MJF, he owns a victory over Kenny Omega, which is actually a really big thing to do, a big thing in AEW. My complaint is, why put that on TV? Wasn't that
you hold on there? We are going to be talking that. I don't know why I'm interrupting you like that, but we are going to get onto that in a minute, because that's going to be the major point we're going to get to. But
okay,
just sticking with the match. In fact, actually, more importantly, something you said last week about Bret Hart. You said the one thing that he doesn't do well, in your opinion, is that he doesn't give out the facial expressions. He's rather more stoic than most. Kenny, in my mind, is the opposite. He's the bug eyes and, he's really expressive with his face. Is that something you appreciate more?
I do, because now you're selling emotionally. So you can look at somebody just crying, and the first thing you think is, what's the problem? What's going on here? She's crying, or he's crying. Same way with the wrestler's face. If he gets hit in the back, your natural reaction is to make, like, God, that hurt. So you got to sell with your face. Apparently, Bret forgot the memo. He didn't read the memo on that, or he's just not good at it. And again, I'm nitpicking, but with Bret, I've always said that about him. What's that called? The set face? It's the
resting bitch face.
The resting face with Bret is that it doesn't match what has happened. But with Kenny, I'd rather him over exaggerate it, because I've seen people in real life over exaggerate something, especially with their face. You can say, "Oh, it didn't hurt that bad. Shut the hell up. Keep going." That's what I've said a lot of times. But I really appreciated this match. They did a great job. Now, what's the point you want to talk about? Or we got something else?
No. The 3-day build to the match. Now, as you know me, I like to compartmentalize all these subjects as best I can. But I want to get on this for its own subject. So this was announced on Wednesday? It must have been Wednesday, or it may even been Thursday morning. I can't remember. Anyway, it was announced for a Collision on Saturday, this match. Now, Kenny Omega versus MJF, two of AEW's biggest stars. I don't think they've ever had a singles match before. It was for the title. The stakes really couldn't be higher, and I think for an AEW pay-per-view, this would be a pay-per-view main event on any pay-per-view they did, whether it was Wrestle Dream or All in Wembley. That could be the main event. But they hot-shotted it. Is that the right... Is hot-shotting the right term you would use for that?
Well, hot-shotting, it means working a hot angle and going into it. But they hadn't worked an angle, have they? Or no?
No. Right. So the only
they just
reason
booked it. They just booked it.
It was a sort of flimsy premise of why they put it together was because MJF was about to beat Kenny Omega's record as for as many days consecutive as AEW champion. So this is why this was just thrown together for that reason at the last minute.
Okay, he put it on a Saturday night versus what?
Is it World Series baseball?
The World Series and college football.
Mm-hmm.
You know what WWE would have done there? They would have put on good matches, but nothing like that. World Series is once a year. You either watch it when it's there or you don't watch it live. And What else was on? I said college football was on. And
that's all
that's
you
going to
need.
take. See, WWE would have taken the safe way because they have an excuse if it doesn't draw a rating.
They did.
Or if it doesn't draw.
This Monday, they did. They put on a show, nothing major, drew a bad number as predicted. Not as bad as they thought they were going to do. But that's what they did. They did basically a placeholder show because they knew they couldn't compete with the World Series.
Right. And AEW should take the same marking stick and do the same thing. Because why fight them? You can't fight them. I mean, it's wrestling, and you got 52 weeks a year. Now, if you had pushed this on TV for 3 weeks, say, put out all your advertising, and it did 400,000, 450,000, but that's a normal rating,
472,000, right? That is under the average when not competing against a WWE show.
Okay,
so,
now...
under average, basically.
If they had probably situated this where it didn't have a lot of competition, it may have did 700, 750,000. It may have done 300,000 more people, but I think Tony, he may be under pressure from that network to turn a rating. And when you're under pressure, buddy, I've been there. You said, screw it, I'll throw this in there. Really, what Tony Khan is doing, and he has done, and he's had a few successes, but he is learning on the job. It's OTJ on the job, OJT, on the job training. So nobody ever told Tony Khan he could book. Maybe he did, but he's booking 3 shows. And you can't make them all different because you reach a point after, I don't know, a couple of years. He probably broke my record. Remember, I was doing the 2 hours a week in Puerto Rico I did 500 something hours. He's already topped that. If he doesn't have anybody else helping him.
He's doing 250 hours a year, not including the pay-per-views.
So he's already beat me.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably doing up to 300 hours a year.
But he did it with about 160 talents more than I had. I only had like 18 to choose from, but that works great for story. Unless you have story, you can only match these 18 guys in so many different ways, or you're repeating yourself. But anyway, Tony, much success. I wish you'd done better, but the match, for what it was, let's just go back to that, was very good.
Now, sticking with AEW, we're going to be for the next few bits. Jerry Lynn.
Wait a minute, we can't get any views on this if I'm not knocking anybody. Tony, you're the shits. Book some better stuff.
Yeah.
Hate that crap, damn it.
Jerry Lynn has said, now this is actually referring to Dave Meltzer,
He's
your
sad.
best pal. Hey, who? What?
He's sad?
He's not sad. Oh, I don't
That's
know.
what you said.
Okay, he's sad.
Sad.
Did I say sad?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I will. I don't even bother editing out, Chris. Don't worry. Dave Meltzer recently discussed on Wrestling Observer Radio the fact that AEW talent are being told the plans and directions far later than they used to be, leaving talent less time to, I suppose, figure out how many Canadian destroyers they're going to use in the match to pre-plan their matches. Meltzer said, a lot of guys have a lot of input on what they're doing, so they're doing stuff, but they don't really know a long-term direction. Now, with this, AEW producer and former ECW star Jerry Lynn responded to these comments by posting a statement of his own on Twitter, saying because wrestlers and God knows who else have and continue to leak info to the dirt sheets, podcasts, etc. So Tony tries to keep things confidential. You wouldn't want to know everything before you see a movie. Anyone who leaks info is doing damage to the product and the industry.
Yes.
I know you agree with that, but I mean, how much how much AEW info for live Dynamite or Collision shows have been like leaked a day before it happened? I don't remember much of that at all.
This is what I think is happening. I think Dave Meltzer's on that phone with that AEW talent all hours of the day and nights, and he's trying to throw his thoughts to them. And the reason that they're not getting this farther in advance is, I think, two reasons. I think probably Tony doesn't know or can't say he knows, because that's a lot of planning. And this talent, when they hear they're doing something and they don't like it, they go out of their way to leak it to Meltzer and try to ruin it, not knowing that by doing damage like that, they're doing damage to their own job. And I think Tony needs, I've said this time and time and time again, Tony Khan needs to be a boss. He needs to say, if I have any indication that anybody is leaking talent to Meltzer, and he does look like Vladamir, by the way, to Meltzer or anybody else, he said, you're gone. You will be released immediately without pay. So I would watch what you say to people. I really do. And that's a bad thing for a booker or an owner to have to say, but the new talent doesn't understand that. TNA, it was the same thing. Somebody was leaking talent to them all the time. And we kind of figured it out, but couldn't prove it. So it got better toward the end. But, and I've said this, the booker, Tony, I don't know if he has a creative team. He has some people around him. Mm-hmm. They're the least thanked person in any wrestling company, because when the company is doing good, guess who gets the credit? The talent. The talent gets all the credit. May not have had nothing to do with it except their work. They just following what they told them to do to continue the story. But if it's bad, oh my God, fire the creative team. Get rid of them. They don't know what they're doing. I heard that so many times. And when I was in TNA, you know, and TNA, Dixie was even talking to Meltzer. When you got the owner talking to the dirt sheets, but at least she talked to him. I don't know what she'd tell him, and they were real nice to her and whatever. But, you know, I think she would ask them their opinion on, now I can't say this 100% sure. I heard this, that she would ask their opinion on what they thought, and she would go with that.
Do you know who else used to do that?
Who?
Bill Watts, I believe.
I don't think he did it too much. Who was he supposed to do it to?
I think he was in. I think he used to talk to Dave Meltzer at the time. God, I hope I'm not just making that up. I might just erase that. I thought he used to talk to Dave Meltzer in the time when he was WCW head.
Well, he may have talked to him then, but I think he was like forced to. WCW was a different entity, and you had some people in WCW. They thought that Meltzer, hell, he held the world in his hands, and he had all the answers. When he had all the questions, he didn't have all the answers. If you have somebody who have all the answers, where have they been? I mean, you can't believe me. Running if you're running even a play was easier to run on Broadway because you got a set script and you fill your characters in and you do it night after night after night after night. A wrestling show changes arenas, they change personnel, they change referees, they change everything, and they change how matches end. So this is a whole different animal, all in unto itself. Wrestling is different than anything else you've ever seen. But I don't know if I think Watts may have talked to Meltzer, but I think only because he had to.
In your opinion, who was more likely, not like individual names, but like candidates to call the Meltzers of the world or the wrestling news websites? Was it going to be the lower card embittered? What's up with this camera at the moment? It's going freaking out on me. Would it be the embittered lower card types who weren't getting booked, or would it be more likely to be the main eventers gaming the system?
More lower card. trying. They know their owner reads the sheets. So if you know that he reads the sheets, if the sheets talked favorably about you, that may increase the talent's possibility of getting in an angle or getting above where they were. But the top guys weren't above calling it either. One of the top guys who called, and I've said this before, was Bruiser Brody.
Mm-hmm.
Because Meltzer was allegedly a good friend of Bruiser, but he did that to leverage his status with the U.S. promotions and the Japanese promotions. But we're talking big money here. We're talking like $20,000 a week, talking something like that. So in that case, I could see why he gamed the system. And it worked for him till it didn't. So we know how all that ended. But I would say a lot of the low-level talent, they would get his number and call him, and they would give him some information. So, and I've called him years and years and years ago because he had written something, and I called him up and told him that wasn't quite right or something, and he never fixed it, so I never called him back again. So,
because we were talking about, God, I can't get rid of this coffee either. Is it time for Tony Khan to relinquish booking power? Give it someone with some experience?
Well, I think he needs 3 bookers, to tell you the truth.
Oh, yeah?
I think he needs a booker for each show. And they all consult to see if they're not overlapping. And I think he has and then he steps out of the role of the active booker. He's a booker, not a boss. See, when you disagree with Tony now, you disagree not only with the booker, but with the boss.
And your friend. Because he wants to be friends with everyone.
Well, yeah, the inmates cannot run the asylum. I've said that. That's an old saying in wrestling. And if you got too much, I mean, he's got his core around him. So he needs to solidify that core and keep going. But I don't know how he does that. I think Jerry, what was his name that
Lynn
you mentioned? Jerry Lynn, good guy. But he's pissed off. I know why he's pissed off. Because of everything they try to do, it gets to the sheets first. Which is no big deal, to tell you the truth. Everybody knows what it is anyway. See, if so-and-so is going to win the title tonight, great. Now I'm going to watch it to see if it happens. It can work in reverse. And if it doesn't happen, and they have been guilty of planting false information too, which makes the sheets mad because now they look like a bunch of assholes predicting this stuff that doesn't happen. Oh, they hate that. But you don't ever see them come out and print an outright correction. They just say they were led to believe this was going to happen, and nothing is ever their fault.
Plans change.
Oh yeah, plans change. That's all they got to say, and plans do change. I mean, they're not saying something that's not out of the realm of reality because it does change.
We very briefly will mention that Wembley tickets are going to be coming on sale at the beginning of December for the.
I'm scalping them.
You see,
I'm getting some.
Yeah, you see, I know you're joking.
How much are they? No, I'm not joking. I know people in the UK. You just because you live there, I know a few people.
Yeah, but that sort of predicts that unless you're getting like front row seats, that All In is going to sell out or get close to selling out. Do you think it's going to a second time?
I don't know. According to what they got. How can you predict that?
Well, exactly. I mean, we're sort of looking at like a momentum kind of thing. So AEW had more momentum at least last year, and they had CM Punk on the card and a couple of other things going for them. And now, since then, it's almost become
wait a minute. Well, maybe by this time AEW could be in cahoots with WWE.
No. It's in 8 months, you think? 10 months?
And hey, anything can happen in this business. Believe me. It's the most unpredictable business ever. We'll go back to a local level. I've seen Memphis with 5,000 people in there. Oh, every other town would be jumping up and down. Memphis in that 10,000, 12,000 seat Mid-South, it was like the end of the world. You go backstage and they go, oh, God, what are we going? Next week you work a hell of an angle. It's full. Oh, happy days are here. Anything can happen. I've seen territories dead on their ass. They do the right thing. They got they go on immediate life support, and then all of a sudden they got life.
I think they'll do Bryian Danielson's retirement match there. I think that's the only realistic hook they've got at the moment, because they won't have CM Punk, they won't have Sting, who will have retired as well. So I think that'll be the hook. 2
of them at a time, maybe. And who's Sting's opponent? Is he in a tag match?
Oh, we don't know what the final match is going to be. We just know he's going to be retired in March, so he won't be All In unless he's just sort of at the outside.
What if Sting wrestles Bryian Danielson, who wins in the retirement match? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't. As long as they all have a nice time, that's the main thing.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you, doing Wembley, can the people drink?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You can't get half-time pies there, I don't think. Oh, no, you might be able to get half-time pies there as well.
What is that?
Like a pie to eat.
Why do they call it halftime?
Oh, because everyone, like at the football matches, it goes halftime, then everyone goes and gets a pie.
And how many halftimes in soccer?
1.
Okay.
2 45-minute, unless, yeah, basically it's 1 halftime. Then there's full time, and then it has to, and then on certain tournaments and stuff, it doesn't matter. How many seats do you think are going to be sold ultimately for All In Wembley 2?
60,000. I'm just saying.
Hey, I still think that'd be a massive success if it was 60,000.
Well, yeah, sure it would be.
I think some people out there would be like, well, if they don't sell out,
but I would scale it down, and I would make sure I'd fill the scaled up area. Therefore, being able to say we sold it out. We sold out our assigned seats. It's all in the language.
No, of course. We've sold out until more seats are revealed, and then they sell them out. And
then all right, go ahead.
This one's a video I've got for you. AEW versus Bill Apter. AEW versus Bill Apter. Our friends at Sportskeeda a few days ago released a video with Bill Apter on one of his podcasts for the wrestling news site, and he said the following. Let me just tee it up. Okay, so the following is about 37. Well, it's exactly 37 seconds worth of audio from Bill Apter talking about his relationship and trying to get AEW contracted employees onto interview, and his experience with AEW.
I had mentioned to both of you, because Mac, it was you and I were discussing that I do interviews with WWE guys on the Apter chat, indie guys, veterans, but why no AEW, right? So AEW, I have asked ad nauseum for the past 6 months or more about doing AEW interviews, storyline based, just based on their angles or whatever. I'm not one of these guys that does the politics. And I keep getting from their PR thing, Dear Bill, thanks for your email. We're not doing interviews.
So, thank you, Bill. We're not doing interviews. So, what do you make of that? Because WWE these days is now a lot easier to deal with as far as, talent relations and being seen by the public and doing podcasts and stuff. Whereas AEW are getting more closed off. What do you think about that?
Actually, I think that's a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Interview a guy from AEW, and if he doesn't put the company over, if he doesn't put over the company, well, then just get rid of him.
Do you think it's scared because of when they let MJF do podcasts and then he just trashed the company?
Yeah, but see, that's again, I go back to Tony needs to be a boss. If Peter trashed me and he may even be right with what he's saying, I would say don't take it public. You never take it public in anything. If you're playing football and you're the best player on the team, and you know you're the best player, and the fans know you're the best player, but if you go on and trash the coach, that does nobody any good. Nobody. The people don't like the team. They got a bunch of, nitpickers behind the scenes, and you're not getting your chance because of this and this and this and this. That doesn't accomplish anything. So if AEW guys are told not to do interviews, that may be one of the signs of why they're leaking things to the dirt sheets, because they can't talk otherwise. I think that's a bad business decision. And I think those guys need to be sat down and say, don't talk out of school so much. I mean, like we do this podcast, we don't really know what's going on. But if we did, if we told it, it's going to, and it's not true, but say we had a boss and we're working in this company. And all of a sudden we said, well, they didn't like this and the creative didn't like that. And, and I'm not allowed to do this. And well, then you're going to get more calls to the company to talk to the guy who said that. And now it creates more trouble than what it's worth. And what it's worth, it may get you fired. Okay, if you have $100,000 a year job and you're not working all year, why would you say anything bad about your employer? I'd be putting them over like the second coming. Say, damn, I don't got to do nothing. I can sit here and, I get the check every week or every 2 weeks or whatever they send. Why would I be knocking them? And then I can work independence too. I'd be in heaven back if I was 30 years old or 25 years old. But a lot of these guys, they look at wrestling as they want to be stars. And I don't blame them for that, because if you don't think you're a star, you don't have any business being in wrestling. But you can't let everybody know that. You just got to go be a star and keep your mouth shut. How hard is that to do? But I can see why AEW probably doesn't allow it. Because you know why? If they don't allow it, what's that tell you? They don't trust their talent.
I've got a story for you, Dutch, that I didn't even tell you I was going to tell you about. So
this is not story time with James,
This can be reaction time with Dutch.
Okay.
You let me know.
I got it.
So when Bill says, and I've got the quote in front of me, I've got the quote, I can't find it. Dear Bill, thanks for the email. We're not doing interviews. So the first time, so I'll say this now. AEW, and I've dealt with a lot of different, quite a few different wrestling leagues over, the few years that I've been doing this. All of them are infinitely more professional than AEW's clown show of a media relations department. They are the worst. I'll give you a couple of examples why.
They're the what?
They are the worst, not the worst.
What's the other word? What's the other word?
It's just one giant clown show going on there as far as media relations, as far as I can tell.
I thought you were going to call them the S word.
Oh, the shits with a Z, yeah.
Okay, James said it. I didn't say it. Go ahead.
So,
James.
Anyway, the first time I wrote to them was initially I'd written to Tony Schiavone because I wanted to have him on WSI. This is before we were doing our podcast. And I said, "Hi, Tony, I'm so-and-so, you know the thing. Any chance I can book you for an interview?" And he said, "Yes, but you have to run it through AEW first." So I email AEW and say, "Can I have Tony Schiavone for any date that he's free?" And they write back and say, "Tony Schiavone's not doing interviews." And it's like, well, him or his person just said he was fine to do an interview, but then AEW's blocking it. So then, over the next year or so, I write to AEW very sporadically and just say, "Hello, I'm so-and-so, I've got this many followers, and any chance any of your, there's a pay-per-view coming up, for example, any chance I can have someone on?" Absolute radio silence, never get a reply. So at this point, I'm thinking, well, I must be on some sort of internal blacklist of people not to talk to. Considering that, WSI is one of the most watched wrestler interview specific channels out there, it seems a bit weird. And I was thinking, am I on a blacklist? Because I was seeing AEW talents appear on far smaller podcasts and far less subscribed to channels. So I was thinking, that's weird how they're getting talent there, but I'm not. So I tried one last time for All In, and so let's say the show was on at August. I write in May, before even the tickets probably been on sale at that point, I don't know, and say, "Hello, I'm UK based, I have a large UK following," because that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And, you want to sell tickets, I want some content, why don't we do a couple of interviews and then, really push hard selling more tickets? And someone actually did write back to me that time and just said, "Can you write back in a few weeks?" So I did. And then got radio silence again. And then about a few weeks or a month beforehand, I write and say, "Look, am I on a blacklist? Can you not provide me talent?" And also, the other thing I was going to say was, I said, any chance I can have a press pass for the show as well? Because then I can do some filming of the press scrums. Who knows, another fight might break out. It'd be good for the channel. And I was told two things eventually. So I write back again and again and again, finally get a reply and say, one, am I on a blacklist? I'm told no. And then I'm told that I didn't follow protocol to get interviews the previous time, which I did, which that was just made up bollocks. The other thing was, I was told I couldn't have a press pass because essentially I wasn't important enough. Now, that's all well and good. I'm not obviously BBC or ESPN or something like that. But the fact is that they were giving out press passes to previous pay-per-views in 2023 to people who had like Twitter followers or YouTube subscribers in the dozens. So
I just don't like you.
Well, that's what I'm sort of understanding here now. But the fact is that why don't you just like grow a set and just say, grow a set of balls and just say, "We don't like you, we don't want any." But the thing was, is that this isn't. I mean, it sounds like I'm whining that AEW don't want to work with me. Like, I've got enough content for forever. For the channel, it's not a problem. It's just like they can't be straight with me.
Do you want me to call them up?
Do you have that? Oh, they'll never reply to you.
I will call them son of a bitches up. And I say, "You insulted my friend James," which I don't like. And I said, "If you continue to act this way, I will have where are they located? Jacksonville?
Yeah.
I could drive up there. I'm gonna come up to Jacksonville and I'm gonna lay a whooping on somebody's ass."
We should do some ram raiding. Bring ram raiding back. We don't see that often enough. But the fact is that I'm sort of bolstering Bill Apter's thing here. Is that Bill Apter's obviously way more well known than I am in this interview wrestler game, and AEW is saying the same thing to him. We're not doing interviews at this time. But I don't know. But aside from the fact that they'll either ignore you,
I am going to. Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I am seriously going to write them and ask, "Can I have some talent made available to me for this?" and see what they say. I am.
Do it, and we'll see what they say. If you if you do it today, before this episode comes out tomorrow, I would love to know what they say if they reply to you. But it's just like
they won't reply today, I'm sure. But
yeah, anyway,
it's late in the day for them. It's like 12 o'clock at noon, and they go home at 1. So I heard.
So there you go.
If they even if they go in the office.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. You'll be done early.
But I will. You have to give me the email address.
Okay, I'll give you the email address. But yeah, so I can totally back Bill Apter up there.
Okay, let me just this is a previous subject.
Okay.
How close are we to 100,000 subscribers?
Oh, I don't know, probably a few weeks away. We're within 2,000.
Yeah.
We're 98 something now.
That's good.
Let me have a look.
I've subscribed as much as I can.
Once. Here we go. 98,487. We'll make it in 2-3 weeks, I think.
Well, we only got what, 1,600?
Yeah, for 1,500, 1,600 is all we need now.
Very good. So tell all your friends, click subscribe under how many names you have, and keep listening. But I really like this podcast because it is like, seriously, like getting in a car, driving down the road and having a conversation with one of my colleagues back and forth. And we're not knocking too many people. I mean, you got to knock somebody. Yeah. I mean, that's the purpose of it. So, and now, see, I would never have known about your interchange with AEW had you not told me.
You. I've not never saving it for this podcast, but I'm going to do a video on it elsewhere, I think, as well.
Okay, can you say who you talked to?
I don't know anyone's name. I don't even think they ever gave names. I know I'm pretty sure I spoke to more than one person. It's probably Aubrey Edwards, for all I know.
So you have a number?
No. They never left their name on the email, so it was
I see.
Probably interchangeable. But,
maybe I'll call Tony himself.
You've got his
all
number.
He could do is not take the call.
Yeah.
But back to Jerry Lynn, that he doesn't like all that. I can see that because it is very frustrating to be on a member of creative and having some things leaked or being called old and out of touch and not knowing what you're doing. To have a kid who's been in the business like a year or two telling you that, or not necessarily maybe pointing you out, but creative, you don't know what you're doing, and they're going to do what they want to do. So what happened to the guy who went off the ladder? He went off the ladder and broke his leg.
They shot him.
They shoot horses, don't they?
Yeah.
But he hasn't been back to work, has he?
No, I'm not sure he'll ever be back. He might be.
I don't think he can walk.
Dante Martin. I actually remembered his name this time.
Dante Martin, and I hope he's fine. I think he will be. But and all these spots that they want to do, they look great on TV. And the people will remember them. Well, we remember it because it's our job. But they'll remember it like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But he's going to remember that every time he looks down on his leg at the scar, he's going to remember it his entire life.
Do you know what AEW needs is a MASH unit?
Is a what?
MASH unit.
What does that mean?
You must have seen MASH back in
the
day.
I did see MASH, but what is a...
like an army triage hospital sort of thing, like built up in outside the arena for all the dead and broken down wrestlers that they're getting injured every single week.
Well, what surprised me is somehow Sting. I think this brought on his retirement when he wanted to come off the ladder, and when I saw that, I went, no, Sting, you're 60-something years old. Don't come off that ladder. And he missed. He almost killed himself. And he's lucky he didn't get hurt. He really is. That's a drop of 15 feet with the force of gravity. And he weighs 230 pounds and hitting a concrete floor, which, by the way, does not work with you. It's there, and hit me if you want to, but you're not moving me.
So. Hawkeye and Trapper John to theatre. We've got another one. Sting this time. He came off a ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Through early morning.
So we're coming in.
Weirdly, actually, because you started mentioning injuries, that's perfect sort of segue into this next bit. John Moxley concussion protocol, he suggested. Somewhat of a convoluted system, but he talks about the concussion he received from Rey Fenix. where they had to switch the matchup, you know, the thing. Talking to the messenger, John Moxley said the concussion happened 30 seconds into the match, which ultimately sent him to effing outer space for like 10 minutes. Pro wrestling is such a strange thing. In football, if a guy goes down and he doesn't go back to the huddle, you know he's effed up. In pro wrestling, a lot of times it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake. Now, John then talks about what he wants to see in concussion protocol in AEW. And he proposes the following: maybe a really experienced wrestler and a really experienced doctor who are trained to see the signs of that stuff, I'm editing here, are watching it on a separate feed. Even if they have a doctor close to ringside, what if the guy effing spills outside the ring? He doesn't see that. The doctor and wrestler are completely untethered to the creative portion of it, Moxley said. They have no idea nor any interest in what the story is, who wins, who loses, or how long it's supposed to go. If a guy effing spins around or something and the doctor goes, is he okay? The wrestler can tell him, that's just pro wrestling thing, don't worry. As soon as the doctor sees a sign of somebody being concussed, he just hits the effing red button. Boom, this is over. No matter how much time is left, no matter how if it's on TV or live TV, it's just over and you figure it out from there. So John Moxley's concussion and his suggestion for saving wrestlers who have been concussed mid-match.
Well, at least it's a suggestion. They're supposed to have a doctor there anyway, regardless. The doctor should be there. I don't know if the doctor needs to be at ringside. I think that's asking the doctor maybe to do too much, because he might be treating some other wrestlers in the back. You can't be at ringside. But I think you need to train your referees what to look for. And when the referee says that this guy is knocked silly, you know, he holds the sign up. Let's get the doctor out here and let's check the guy, because everybody understands that. And if it changes the path of a whole angle, so be it. You have to do it, because in respect to John, he continued the match. And I've had my brain scrambled. You don't know where you are. One night in Savannah, Georgia, it's really, really dark in the arena, and had a good crowd there. Me and another guy cracked heads, bam, and we knocked each other out. And when I came up, I did not know where I was. I didn't know why I'm in a wrestling ring. I didn't know. I just saw darkness. And I got up and somehow finished the match. And I think the referee said, just do this, because he knew the finish. We did that, rolled out. And on the way to the dressing room, I went the wrong way. Somebody had to come and get me. Somebody and say, you need to go down this other aisle. I did that. Yes, but it is very, you like this word, disconcerting. Is that a word? Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just scrambled. But, and I can understand what John's talking about. There is a way that they need to come up. It needs to be left down to the referee. He needs to know exactly what to look for, and that's his job. And guess what? If he's wrong, so what? If he saw the guy needed help, let's stop it. And see, I used to have a thing called standby match. If something happens during the course of the TV or whatever, and the matches end early, you know, we have a standby match that's going to come out there. To me, it made sense that the standby match is this. You can actually advertise somebody, but you never see them. But one day you do see this thing end early, and your standby match gets in the ring, and of course, you don't have time to complete it, but you end your show by saying, we'll give you the conclusion of this match next week. So they got something to come back to see that and see what else you're doing. It's just something that you cannot trust somebody's health with a wrestling match. I mean, they don't do it in football. They don't do it in basketball. They don't do it in any sports. When a competitor is injured, they're taken off the court. They can't compete. And everybody understands that. Mm-hmm. So, John, you come up with a very nice answer.
I thought he came up
Of
with
course, John, your wife probably gave it to you, so I'm not going to give you the whole credit.
I thought he came up with one of the most convoluted systems I've ever heard in my life. So it involves two people staring on a monitor like VAR or like Hawkeye in tennis to like stare, and then the doctor goes, "Is he concussed?" And the wrestler goes, "Probably not." Is he concussed? It's one of the worst systems I've ever heard. And you hit it straight off the bat. UFC referees, boxing referees, they're all first aid trained. And guess what? If they think that you're concussed or you can't carry on, there's a doctor at ringside. Doctor, come in. They do they do the light in your eyes. It's just give you. But here's where it's really important.
If I was a doctor, I would come in, and the first thing I'd reach for is their pocket, see if they got any money on them. Then I'd take the money out, and I said, "Oh, let's check it." See, that's what they do.
No, I thought it was more nurses. Anyway, not to denigrate the nurses out there. UFC last week or the week before, I think, weekend before. Johnny Walker was in there. He got a knee to the face. I've got the other guy.
Johnny Walker Red.
He's not a bottle of alcohol, would you believe? That is his actual name. Versus Magomed Ankalaev, or I have not blown his name too bad. Gives him an illegal knee. Johnny Walker was a downed opponent, and he gave him a knee straight to the head. The referee immediately steps in, stops the match. And in these kind of circumstances, can you continue? You get 5 minutes, like a low blow. You get 5 minutes to recover, and then if you can't recover, then they take it from there. Doctor comes in. Referee beckons the doctor in, have a look into his eyes. And the doctor says, "Where are you at?" They're in Saudi Arabia. And Johnny Walker sort of goes, "What?" And go, where are you at? And he's like, "The desert, man. I'm in the desert." And I think this was sort of what he was getting at, but it took him a long time to even think he was in the desert. And he never said Saudi Arabia. From that, the doctor went, "No, forget it." Threw it out. And the match was a no contest. Should have been a disqualification, but it was a no contest. And then, straight afterwards, Johnny Walker starts...
Wait a minute, why would it be a disqualification? Because of the knee?
Yeah, it was an illegal knee. So it should have been a
legal
DQ.
knee.
But the fact is that Johnny Walker, straight afterwards, after the match has been called, starts trying to fight again. And it takes him about a minute to get calmed down and be told that the match has been thrown out. So tell me that he wasn't concussed.
No, he was. He really was. So, yeah, these guys get knocked out. But think about all these independent shows. These guys get knocked out all the time.
But you have to save these people from themselves. Oh, that's the point I was making with Johnny Walker. You have to save some of these fighters and wrestlers from themselves because they will push through in their concussed mindset, like John Moxley did.
Okay, I saw Mick Foley, his match against The Rock.
Yep.
Where his hands were cuffed behind his back. I may have brought this up, and I mean The Rock was laying it in because Foley was telling him to lay it in. I mean, how easy can you lay a chair that doesn't look? There come a point, I don't think The Rock wanted to do it, period. I think he eased off of it. The way you ease off on a chair is, when you don't follow through. You let it land and you turn it loose at where you're holding it. That takes the power out of it. But somebody told me to lay it in. I don't do that. There used to be a guy called Gypsy Joe.
Yep.
That son of a bitch would beat the living shit out of you. Then he was Puerto Rican. I met him in the States. He said, "Come on, hit me, hit me, hit me." Well, I hit him one time. He said, "Harder." So I hit him a little harder. "Harder." I hit him a little harder. He said, "Harder." I said, "That's it." That's as hard as I can hit because I knew what was going to happen. He was going to take that chair away from me and beat the living crap out of me, saying since he gave me, he gave me liberty to hit him, then he's going to take a liberty. I said, hell no. I threw the chair out of the ring. If he wanted it, he had to go get it, which gave me enough time to see he had it so I could run. So, but you got to watch some of these guys. And I think these guys, you got to, like we said, you got to save them from themselves. And in this process, you're saving you. Who wants to knock out a guy? Then, oh, here's a chair. You hit me now. Who would do that? I don't know. It's a weird. It's a weird business. It's a weird business.
Do you find any irony in the statement this concussion statement coming from a guy who left WWE to slice himself up with pizza cutters and shove skewers in the top of his head?
Well, he does a lot of things I don't like. What are the skewers on the top of the head? How do you get that in there? Stick it in?
I think there's one in the center with the spike, and then I think the other skewers sort of bloom out like a sort of lovely cactus.
I don't get it. No. I don't get it. I thought he was portraying an Indian or something, or I don't know, like a Mohawk or something. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on in pro wrestling today that I don't understand. But if you really attack it, I mean, you're criticizing the hell out of it, and some of it needs to be criticized, but there's nothing I can do about it. It happens. I'll comment on
it. Yeah, I think the concussion. I think the bloodletting's one thing, but as long as everyone's sort of got clean blood essentially, and you don't get staph infection or something like that, then concussions are obviously far worse and need to be highlighted and safety protocols brought in. I'm going to mention two more things, and I'm going to shut down this podcast. Undertaker has revealed his WCW pay. So
I read that.
Yep. Speaking on his 6 feet under, I don't know if it's a podcast or it's a Patreon thing. Undertaker recalled asking for a raise in WCW. Here's the quote.
Yep.
The meeting was to renegotiate my contract. I had asked for the meeting because my contract was coming due. I was on the standard entry level contract, which is maybe $1,200 a month. So what's that? 60.
No. You read it farther. It's a week.
Oh yeah. This is 1989, early 1990. He corrects himself.
Hell, that'd been like $300 a week.
I know. That'd be a pile of shit. I wouldn't have stayed there. I was at the point in my career where I was a WCW guy. I enjoyed the product better. Being from Houston, we didn't get a lot of WWF until Vince McMahon went to cable. I was more drawn to guys like Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Rock and Roll Express, Road Warriors, and those guys. I was happy.
And Dutch Mantell, he left me out.
And you weren't there in '89.
Yeah, I was there with him.
You were there in 1990. You were in USWA in '89.
Whatever. I was with him in WCW for a while, but he wasn't going as the Undertaker. That's where he went to WWE.
Yeah. You hate my nitpicking, don't you? But it's
no, but you're right. But I've been concussed several times.
Okay, Rock and Roll Express, Road Warriors, and Dutch Mantell, who would turn up a year later. I was happy there and where I wanted to be. I wasn't going in to ask to break the bank. I knew it was going to be my second year with the company. I just wanted a little bump in pay. I went in and met with Jim Barnett and Ole Anderson and Jim Hurd. I gave them my speech. I love it here. I've learned so much this year and I'm really happy. My contract is coming up. I was at $1,200 and then this is where he corrects himself. I was trying to get $2,000. I said a month earlier. It was a week. $2,000 a week is what he wanted. He was making $1,200 a week beforehand. Ole was the first one to speak, and he's like, kid, you're a great athlete, but no one is ever going to see you wrestle. But he's missed out want to see you wrestle. So.
Well, now that I found out how much he was making, I was making more money than he was. I was making $1,500, and then some weeks it'd jump up to $17. I don't know why. And the reason that being is because they booked me and then they didn't book me, and I threatened to sue them. Mm-hmm. Jim Hurd got on the phone and said, okay, he didn't want the lawsuit, so give me a job. And then Jim Barnett called me and said, my boy, we're gonna have you start and we'll pay you $15 a week. Mm-hmm. $15 a week was 40 years ago or whatever it was, 35 years ago. That's a lot of money. I said, damn, that's good. So you get a hotel room for like $35. I mean, it was just a lot cheaper and then the money was good. So, but Mark was making $1,200, which he said was the starting pay for newbie guys. And they had no, Ole was an old time guy. And he booked it the old time way, just tough guys. And and he was probably one of the best. But when he looked at Taker and said, nobody's going to pay to see you wrestle, he was actually right. Because in his present version of Mark Calloway, or whatever his name was.
Mean Mark Callis.
Mean Mark. No, they couldn't. I don't think you could draw flies with him under that gimmick. And we used to stay at this hotel in a motel, but around Atlanta, close to the airport. And Mark told me, because I had him early on in his career, he actually left Memphis to go to Atlanta because of my conversation with Jim Cornette. So he told me that WWE is interested in what should he do. And I says, well, go talk to him. And he asked me a long time, way before this, should he go to WCW or WWE? I said, go to WCW first. Let Vince see you on TV, and then have them get in contact with you. So he followed that formula. I don't know if he followed it because of me or he just did it. But I got him the job in WCW with Cornette one day, and he called Cornette back. Cornette, this was like a Wednesday. He started there the next Monday because they had an injury to the Spivey or Sid or somebody. They needed a big guy. Mm-hmm. So he started there, and it turned out in his favor because, and you've read stories. I don't know. Mark has never told me this, but he envisioned the Undertaker to be immortal and kind of fashioned it after himself. But whatever he did a great job with, because he was over the first time he appeared. And I'm not saying it's his work. It was his gimmick and his music, because he had two parts to a match. His entrance, which was, regal, fascinating, just to sit there and watch it, and dong, and here he comes, and here comes the man who can't die, and he took his time too. His entrance was 5 minutes. That was part of it. Then he would have a match, and he would work within the parameters of what an Undertaker would actually do. He never did anything fast, wore the gloves, and, rest in peace. And it was perfect. And he left. And so Vince put the gimmick on him, thus proving only wrong and right at the same time. People would pay to see Mark under the right gimmick, and they found the right gimmick for him. As Mean Mark, yeah, he's just another wrestler. But as the gimmick Undertaker, and the only gimmick they've ever seen like that, it was perfect. And Paul Bearer matched it perfectly. Mm-hmm. Because Paul Bearer used to work in a funeral home.
Yeah. You
knew that, right?
He was a licensed
mortician. He sure was. Mm-hmm. And when I was booking Florida, I brought him in, and Michael Hayes told me, I said, what else does he do? He said, he's a mortician. I said, a what? He said, he's a mortician. I said, you got to be shitting me. I never heard of a mortician wanting to be in the wrestling business. So Paul was the only one, and I brought him in then. It was kind of the same gimmick, but without a really scary person. But if I'd have had an idea about an Undertaker, believe me, I'd have had one.
I'm going to follow up with a couple of things about this. First off, did the Undertaker, or Mark Callis, or Mark Calloway, the real person, did he, as far as you know, actually like his time in WCW before, obviously, this contract stuff came up?
Well, he didn't know any different. He was just getting started. So he's going to give it time to season himself, for them to get used to him. And I don't think he hated his time there. I don't think he was overly fond of it. But he found his home when he found Vince. and Vince took him the whole way. So WCW served a purpose and a stepping stone for The Undertaker, or for Mark Calloway, Mark Callis, or Mean Mark, or whatever name they had him on, served as a stepping stone, which is how most guys, finally worked their way up. But back in those days, he had worked in Texas. He had worked in Memphis. I think he told me he worked in South Africa, which is a territory we've never talked about, because I never went there, nor did I ever want to go there. I mean, that's the other end of the world. I'm not going. You couldn't have melted me and poured me on a plane for South Africa. I wasn't going. I don't care how much money they wanted to give me. But I think that was the only territories he had ever worked. And I'm not saying he's lucky. He's fortunate. He's fortunate that he's 6'9" and Vince found him first.
Also, because we were talking about $1,200 a week, not a month, a week. And can you talk to me about the WCW contracts at the time? So we know these days there's in WWE there's a downside guarantee, and you have the potential to make millions more than it if character and merchandise take off, that kind of thing. So you said you were on $1,500 a week. Sometimes it would go to $1,700. Would that just be because the houses were up, or did it
something like that? No reason. It was just there. I didn't even ever go by. I said, "Why did it jump?" No, I'd have went to him if it had jumped down to 11. I went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" It dropped, but it went up, so I didn't say nothing. So, what was your question?
That's pretty much it. I just want to know the contract that you signed. So, was the basically your pay was going to be where it was going to be?
$1,500 a week, no matter how many bookings.
Yes,
and that was what it was as the downside. And I actually did an announcing job that I didn't get paid for, because hell, I'm learning too. So that announcing job should have been worth $1,000, but I didn't go ask for it. So just keep the low profile, make your money, because this was when the business was dying. It was dying all over. You either worked in WCW or WWE. Otherwise, you didn't make any money. So keep the low profile, keep the money moving. So
now you mentioned the word downside. Then that's what I was getting at. Was it a downside, or was that if you were in the main event, your money would have stayed the same essentially?
Yeah, I never was in the main event, so I don't know. But see, if I was in the main event and I was pushed up the card, I would have brought that up if they wanted to. I stayed there, I think, 18 months, almost 2 years, maybe. And I got the announcing job just by accident. I just mentioned to Oli, I said, "When are you going to put me out there on the mic with Tony Schiavone?" He said, "I don't know. When you learn to talk, you stupid son of a bitch." That's the way he talked to you. That's the way he talked to me. Well, that's the way he talked to everybody. Everybody was a stupid son of a bitch, a dumb son of a bitch. But that was Oli. So you just went with it. So, and I told the story last week. He walked up to me and said, "I can fire you. I can't fire Luger. I can't fire this other guy said. I can't fire, but I can fire you." So, and he was kidding, because I never got fired. I hope he was kidding anyway. But yeah, it stayed the same, basically. Now, WWE, you want to know about a WWE contract I signed the first time?
We've covered
this
one.
Oh man, it was nothing. It was, I could have made more money working at Dairy Queen. You were guaranteed, and this was when, I mean, if they used you, yeah, you'd make money. But he didn't sign contract, and no downsides. They wanted you to sign contracts, which I eventually ended up signing. I had to stay there because I was making, but they only guaranteed you $150 a year. I went, "What?" He said, "Now you can go and fight it in court, but hell, over 100, just go with it." And they guaranteed you 10 bookings or 15 bookings a year. That's it. And see, the power was, they had all the power. So, I mean, I wasn't the $1 million baby, so I didn't have a lawyer looking at it. I just looked at it myself. So, and when I threatened to sue him, I went to this lawyer and I asked him how much he would do to ask him to. I want him to send a letter to Jim Hurd at WCW. He said $100. I said, how about 50? He said, okay, 50. And so he sent it. And I had just met this lawyer. I just walked in his office one day. I didn't even know who he was. And he called me and said, all right, they won't talk to you about the contract. I said, well, damn, the legal system does work. So he called me and I straightened it out. So I stayed there like 2 years.
The legal system's negotiable, I think.
It sure is.
Now we're going to end on this. Young Dutch.
You said that 10 minutes ago.
No, I didn't. I said we had 2 things to talk about.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
That's my legalese there. I was very specific on that, I know.
Okay.
Young Dutch and young Kevin Sullivan. Now, you at Dirty D Mantell on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, Twitter, is probably only the second photo of you I've ever seen without facial hair.
Mm-hmm.
After all this time. But you text a photo, and Chris put it up now. For all you history buffs out there, here's an old Polaroid photo of me, Kevin Sullivan, in Valdosta, have I said that right, Georgia, when we were both about 20 years old. 4 months after this photo, I was drafted into the US Army, right when Vietnam was flaming up. I'd had 3 matches, Kevin, about 10. So tell us more about the story about this photo and the first couple of months in the business.
Well, first time I'd met anyone with actual experience in the wrestling business, and it was Valdosta, Georgia.
Pardon me.
Which was way, way down south in Georgia, almost all the way to the state line in Florida. And I had never been in Florida in my life up to that point. So actually, when I left, it said Florida was like 5 miles. So I drove down 5 miles south, which I wanted to be going north, just to say that I'd been in Florida. And I drove down to the exit. I crossed the line, then I came back. So I was in Florida. And Kevin was there, and he was from Boston, and he had met this guy somewhere that went to Florida and was running wrestling shows. And I started talking to Kevin, and I found out how inexperienced he was. He found out how inexperienced I was. And I'd only had like 3 matches, and he'd only had 10. And later on, when I started in Georgia, my first match was they wanted me to drive to Valdosta, Georgia. And that's the first show I worked there was an independent show. The other show I worked there was a regular show with the Georgia official NWA office. But they didn't tell me it was a tryout. So I went down there because I had a friend working there, and he'd been talking to the booker, Tom Ernesto, about me coming in. And so he gave me a tryout. He wasn't there or anything. And I went out there and worked with somebody. I forgot even who I worked with. But I must have made a pretty good impression because they called me the next week and wanted to start me. So, and I remember instead of signing the WWE contract, they asked me, how much money are you looking at? And I went, oh, I don't know, whatever. And you know what the guy said? Tom did. He said, how about 300 a week? 300 a week. If you worked a regular job, you'd be lucky to make $100 a week, digging ditches or whatever you could get. And I'm thinking, 300 a week? Hell yeah, I'll take it, because I didn't show that much enthusiasm. And I walked out. It was like one of the best days of my life. So then I started working there. But in the picture with Kevin, we had a Polaroid. I guess it was mine. I don't know. And I said, Kevin, take a picture with me. And he did. I don't even know if I knew his name, and then all through my career, I kept running into Kevin here, and I'd run into him there, and we'd always talk about it. So but he was a good guy. And sometimes people, they want to see where you came from. And I've never shown that picture before, but it's at Dirty D Mantell on X, used to be Twitter, but you can see it there. So I thank Kevin for taking the picture with me. So, and he told me how he trained and how you trained in Boston. Then I was from South Carolina, so how I trained there, it was similar, but different surroundings. So, and he had the Boston accent. Pak the Kai. Hell, I couldn't even hardly understand him. I was from way down south, so I'm speaking real Southernese, and he's speaking Bostonian. So, but we finally made it work. Good guy.
Your Wikipedia and various other match listings list you starting in 1972. But I mean, if you started wrestling before you would, what year were you drafted? Was it 70?
70. So no, maybe late 69.
Yeah. So you actually started your career in 69, basically.
Well, maybe earlier before that, but that was just independent shit. I don't even count those. You know, it was just the ring set up and 10 fans around the ring. And the 10 fans, I would be like on a first name basis with them by the time the match was over. So,
but let's say your first match that you got paid for, can we say 68 or 69 then?
Probably. And the pay was be like $5, $10 at the most, and that was it.
Because I know you did.
I had a promoter tell me one time, said he went in the hole, and I owed him money. Said, I'm gonna charge you for a training session, which he should have because there was nobody there.
Did you wrestle between tours of Vietnam?
I only had one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, only one. I was out after about, I don't know, they was cutting the military back then. I did about 20-something. I didn't do quite 2 years, but I did like 22 months, 21 months.
Just to finish off this thought, then, because I'm very interested in this. So, you get back out of the army. Do you just call Tom Renesto up and just say, hey, I'm back?
No, I didn't know Tom then. I knew a guy who had worked independence with me in the Carolinas. His name was Doug Scoggins. Nobody ever remembers him because he got killed in a car wreck about 6 months after I started in Georgia, because I was living with him. So, and when I heard about he died, they ran 2 shows on Monday. One was Valdosta, one was Augusta. Remember that Valdosta town I was telling you about? They would run it on Monday. And my friend Doug wasn't in Augusta. He was in Valdosta. And he was driving down the road and he got sleepy. And he was big. He was like 6'7", but he was 400 pounds. He was a huge guy. And he went to sleep at the wheel and eased over onto the grass median. And they had a truck working there to put a fence down the middle. And he hit the truck and it come right back on him. Ugh. Killed him instantly. So I went to Augusta. Then I got a call in Augusta from Tom, because Tom didn't go to Augusta that night for some reason. He usually went. And he told me that Doug, and he loved Doug. He used to ride with him all the time. He loved him. And he said he got killed and wanted me to call his mother and father and tell them. So I had to call them. I had their number. I had to call them from Augusta and give them that news. That's one of the hardest things I ever had to do.
Yeah.
So.
I hate to end on that sad of a note. How did he then get you back into the Georgia territory? Was it just simply a call?
No, I was out. No, you mean Doug?
Yeah. So after you got back out of the army, how did Doug get you back into the business?
He just told Tom about me.
Yeah.
And kept talking about me, And finally, Tom's interested. I got to see this friggin' guy. So And then I walked in one day. They said he wanted to see me. And in the office, the old office, which was like the Dallas office, kind of, they had the arena inside, the office inside the arena, a building. I forgot what it's called. Not Sportatorium, something else. Wrestling arena or something. And that's where I talked to him. And he said, all right, I want you to start. He told me Valdosta to start. But Valdosta, it turned out, was a trying out point. And then a week went by, and then he started booking me full time. Then I moved in, and I was living with Doug, because he brought me in. He was like my sponsor, and we did everything to get rode to the matches together. And so when he had that accident, it was that apartment, I had to go back to it. So it was a very eerie feeling being in there, but good guy. And I think if he had not gotten killed, he would have been one of the huge names in the old WWWF to go against Bruno, because he was a big guy, and they would have got him over there.
Give us his full name once again.
Doug Scoggins.
Doug Scoggins.
What's his name?
Did he wrestle under that name, or did he have a different name? Or
no, he wrestled under a mask. I cannot remember his name. I will come up with it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that for next week, hopefully. But for now, on that note, we're going to shut down the podcast. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back, on Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I think the podcast drops with your questions to Dutch. If you want your questions put to Dutch, questionsfordutch@gmail.com is where you message. We've got books, we've got everything. We've done the plugs at the beginning, but for now, we'll see you on Tuesday. And I nearly called you Doug, for God's sake. After Dutch, we the people.
We the people.